Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Brothers Reborn. We're glad to have you. I'm Matthew,
And I'm Daniel,
and we are the
the
Brothers
Brothers
Reborn.
Reborn.
All right, so we have Proverbs number 7 tonight. That's where we're going, Proverbs chapter 7. Um, it's a good one. It's another warning about immoral women, but there's a lot more that can be gained from this. And it works for women and immoral men as well, right? But Solomon gets a little deeper in this one, and he also talks about, one of the interesting things about this one is he talks about as I was watching out my window. So what we get to gather from this kind of is what Solomon's given you. Not only is it wisdom that he has the Lord, right? But he's also given us wisdom from experience, right? So he's talking about experiences that he has actually had because he says, as I was looking out my window. So, as we get into tonight's, we'll just think about that. And we'll think about, you know, how we actually are also getting some of Solomon's own personal experience.
Right.
As he's saying, I was looking out my window and I seen this happen. And for all of those, for anyone out there who is doubting themselves or doubting their worth, I was talking to somebody today, and sometimes I think that we forget just who we are, right? And I want to remind you who you are. You're a child of God. And what does that mean? He is the King of all kings, right? And what is the child of a king? Your royalty. You're either a prince or a princess, right? You're a child of the King of kings. You are royalty and you are worthy. Okay? So I want you to remember that and pick your head up because you belong to the greatest Father there is, the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, the God of the heavens and the earth. That's who you belong to. And don't ever forget that. I know some days are hard. Some days we say, my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. But always remember who you are, okay? And who you have looking over you. And you have a Father that you can call upon, and He will because He can. All you have to do is trust Him. So, with that, I think we'll be ready to get into Proverbs tonight. Yeah? You
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah. I wonder how many times I'll be convicted tonight.
Well, it's a good one. So, here we go. Proverbs chapter 7 starts with another warning about immoral women. Follow my advice, my son. Always treasure my commands. Obey my commands and live. Guard my instructions as you guard your own eyes. Tie them on your fingers as a reminder. Write them deep within your heart. Love wisdom like a sister. Make insight a beloved member of your family. Let them protect you from an affair with an immoral woman, from listening to the flattery of a promiscuous woman. While I was at the window of my house looking through the curtain, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path by her house. It was at twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell. The woman approached him, seductively dressed and sly of heart. She was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. She is often in the streets and markets, soliciting at every corner. She threw her arms around him and kissed him, and with a brazen look, she said, I've just made my peace offerings and fulfilled my vows. You're the one I was looking for. I came out to find you, and here you are.
My bed is spread with beautiful blankets with colored sheets of Egyptian linen. I've perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink our fill of love until morning. Let's enjoy each other's caresses. For my husband is not home. He's away on a long trip. He has taken a wallet full of money with him and won't return until later this month. So she seduced him with her pretty speech and enticed him with her flattery. He followed her at once like an ox going to the slaughter. He was like a stag caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce its heart. He was like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing it would cost him his life. So listen to me, my sons, and pay attention to my words. Don't let your hearts stray away toward her. Don't wander down her wayward path, for she has been the ruin of many. Many men have been her victims. Her house is the road to the grave. Her bedroom is the den of death.
Whew. So this starts out with some good advice, right? Saying follow my advice.
Right,
Okay. And then it also it talks about love wisdom like a sister, right? So that's one thing that we should do. We should always keep in our hearts is that wisdom is something we should treasure,
right,
right? As you would love your sister or your brother, whoever it may be, right? You love them very much because they are yours, right? They're your
right,
brother, they're your sister. And it's saying keep wisdom just like that. But I also want to note that while Solomon is here and he's talking about, this is a lesson about immoral women, but he's also alluding to other sin at this point. He's talking about sin that looks pretty, that looks fun, that looks good. And he's saying, don't fall into that trap.
right. And yeah, what I get from it, it says he was walking down the street and he walked right past her house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like anything. If you come out of addiction or anything like that, or alcoholic, you don't go hang out at the trap house. You don't go walk down in front of the bar because you're going to be like, oh, what's that?
Right, right. And he does allude to that. He was walking there at a dark time,
Right,
right? And he was walking in a place that it seems like people knew was kind of a den where you didn't need to be. Right? And
right,
that's exactly like you're saying. Don't put yourself in those situations where you're around those things and can be enticed by the beautiful outside image that sin will sometimes give you, right? Because it will coat itself in diamonds. And then when you open it up, you find out it's full of worms and maggots and bad stuff, not good stuff.
right,
And but it's very, and you see, Solomon, as I talked about before we even got into this, he said, while I was at the window of my house, right? So what he's saying here is these are things that I've seen myself. I
right,
have seen these things happen in the world.
right,
I have watched people go to their downfall because they weren't making wise choices. Right? They were making choices that weren't wise. Walking in shifty looking alleyway, of a place you don't know, you're liable to get robbed or something, right?
right,
When you're walking past, I'll never forget. I was I was in Miami Beach one time, right?
right,
And I was taking a cab down to the beach, and I had taken this cab ride many times, and I noticed that this cab driver was taking a different route than all the rest of them.
hmm,
And I said to him, I said, "Hey, where are we going?" He said, "I'm taking you where you want to go, right?" And I said, No, you're not. You're going the wrong way. I know what you're doing. You're trying to run that fare up.
mm-hmm,
So it's $11 from my hotel to where I want to go. I've done it several times.
right,
I know what it is. It costs $11, then plus $1, it goes 12, and then I give you a tip, right? He said, "Oh no, this is the fastest way." I said, "I tell you what, when that thing hits $11, I don't care where I'm at. You let me out." Well, he did. When it hit $11, he let me out, and I wasn't where I wanted to be.
right,
And I was like, I'm in a place that I don't know anything about.
Right.
I probably should have just let him do his thing, gave him the few extra dollars,
Right.
and I would have been okay. So I decide I'm gonna walk to where I gotta go because I pulled out my phone and I had Google and it's like, oh,
Right.
that's like 13-minute walk or something. Well, as I got there, I was thinking, well, if I go up this alleyway right here, I can cut out a lot of this 13 minutes because it's got me going all the way around here. And I looked and I said, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna do that. I
I'll
don't.
take the 13,
I don't
huh?
think I'm gonna do that. About that time, out of the shadows came this guy, and I promise you, he was dressed in like a Catwoman suit or
Mm.
something, and he had a little backpack with him, and he did his little dance, and I was like, "Yep, I'm definitely going this way." And he came with me. He walked with me this way. He walked with me that way, and when I got to where I was going, he was still walking with me, doing his little dance. And I was thinking, you know what? That was not the wisest choice
Right.
you have ever made. Now, at that time, I was not in a part of my life where I was even worried about making wise decisions. But I can look back on that now and go, you know what? I should have rethought that way before.
Right.
While I was still in the cab, I should have just went, okay, you know what? This was fine. It's fine.
Or go ahead and let me out now before they even get to $2. I can still get back and call me another one.
Well, I mean, I didn't realize until,
Oh,
we were already a
okay.
little ways from the hotel, and then I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't right.
Right.
But still, there was a lot of other things I could have done
Right.
other than just drop me off wherever, right? What if he'd have decided to put me really in a bad place? I mean,
Right.
he actually dropped me off at a mall, so it really wasn't that bad. And then I walked from there. But it's little things like that. And sometimes that even comes to our pride will stop us from
Right.
making wise choices, right? But that's pretty much what I was letting get in the way right then. Like, hey,
Right.
man, I know I've done this.
Right.
You finna get me. Not today. And it's like, really, I got anyway by myself. I really tricked myself into a weird situation.
But and the crazy thing, you talk about how Solomon alludes to things that he's seen.
Mm-hmm.
This when she talks about a husband, she knows he's going to be away for a while because he's got money. We don't know if he's out going to gamble. He's going to pick up more women like her. So she decided, well, he gonna go do his thing. I'm gonna do my thing while he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But he alludes to that because that's really how the world works. Like if he ain't gonna give me attention, I'm gonna give it from somewhere.
Right.
Not that it's right that it does it like that, but that's what the flesh tells us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's crazy. Because somebody's wrongdoing doesn't make it okay for you to do wrong.
Right.
Right. And a lot of times that's that bargaining thing that we
Right.
talked about before, right? Well, they're not being good to me, so I'm gonna do my own. There's steps that you can take to remedy those things, right?
Right.
And there's things that we can do to get us out of that situation we're in, because at that moment, and what it's saying right here is this lady's saying, she's still married, no matter what her husband is doing,
Right.
right? Whether he's doing wrong, right? It's indifferent. She is married.
Knows.
She even tells him, right?
Uh-huh.
So now he knows.
Right.
It's like it's not even like you could say,
I didn't
"Oh, well, I
even
didn't
know.
know."
Right.
Which a lot of times, you'll try and trick yourself that way too. Well, I didn't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it really any different, right? It was still wrong. You didn't know. Okay, well, that's fine. You still got to ask for forgiveness for it, right? If you found out, then you did wrong, right? And at that point, okay, what I did was wrong. But these things that happen, what Solomon is really trying to get at here is we like pretty things, right? Shiny things. We like things that look like they're going to be good or fun. And I think it's just really easy for him to relate to an immoral woman, which he's also talking against adultery here as well.
Right.
He's big on that, but he's using that also kind of to foreshadow other sins as well and say, look,
Right.
these all lots of sin looks just like this, and a lot of times you can avoid it if you just stayed on the well lit street that was over here and
Right.
you just kept going this way, but instead you went down the street that you knew you shouldn't have. You went down that alleyway that I looked down and I was like, you went down it, you say,
Yeah.
yep, I'm gonna
Got to the other side, you were dancing.
yeah, exactly. It's like, well, what happened in there? We're not gonna talk about it, right? So those I think that's one of the biggest things about 7 chapter 7 here is start looking at those things in your life that are shiny and look pleasing to you and start evaluating, are they really in the scope of doing God's will? Are they really some things that you should be doing, or should you start saying, you know what, that's probably not what I need to be doing? That's more along the dark alley over here, and I need to bring it to the light. In James, it tells us, resist the devil and he will flee, right? And that's how we have to do. That's how we have to do. Nobody said it was going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody'd do it. We'd all be saved. We wouldn't have to worry about anything, right? There would have been no point for Jesus to even come because we'd all be doing the right thing. If it was that easy,
Right.
we wouldn't have had to have Jesus come. We needed Jesus because we couldn't do it, right? So now we have to start going, wait, but I know the truth now. James said, if I resist the devil, he will flee. Sometimes you got to ask yourself, do you want to resist? Or are you just pretending that you want to resist? There's a big difference. See, it's easy to convince yourself that you want to resist, but are you resisting? And that's kind of what we're talking about here. And that's Solomon says he could see that they were all foolish men, right? But one of them happened to fall into that snare, that trap.
Right.
He said they were men, not a man. He said they were men, but she grabbed one of them. Sin will do you that way, even if you're in a big group of people. It'll reach out there and grab you. Don't think you're protected because everybody else around you is doing bad. It doesn't work like that. It'll reach in there and snatch you out just like it did this man right here. And he's going to be in a world of hurt, especially if husband comes home early. What if he just happened to run out of all his money on day one? Honey, I'm back to get some what in the world? Bad day. Trust me. Probably not going to be a good day for either one of them. All three of them. So those things are things that you have to want to not do. And you have to be consciously aware because most of the time we are. Solomon tells us about common sense, right? He tells us about getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do so that you don't so that you don't act like these men right here and go down those paths. So as you go forward, start thinking about, is it shiny and pleasing right now? Or does maybe it look a little dull right now, but in the end, it's going to be pleasing to the Father and it's going to be great. Because some of the things, some of the paths that we have to walk to fulfill the will of God, some of those are hard.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those are uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for Jesus to walk the path that he had to walk. It was uncomfortable for him to take the lashings. It was uncomfortable for him to carry the cross. And it was uncomfortable for him to carry the weight of humanity's sin on him. That's what he bore. That's the pain that he was bearing on that cross, was the weight of humanity's sin. It wasn't his own sin. He didn't sin. Jesus never sinned. He took all of our sin. That wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. And he could have jumped off. He could have stopped it, but he didn't. And it was precisely him not getting off, which was made him so strong. And that's the thing that we have to be able to do. We have to pick up that cross. And we have to be able to start resisting the things that we think make us comfortable, right? Those shiny things that are no good for us. We got to be able to say no and resist those things. And guess what? Once you resist it enough, you won't think about it no more, right?
Right.
You'll stop thinking about it, and you'll be able to get away. It's kind of like addiction. It's kind of, if you used to smoke or drink or smoke was tobacco, whatever it is. Sometimes it's tough at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but usually it gets easier and easier and easier, and then
Right.
eventually it's like, you know what? I don't even know why I used to do
Right. Exactly.
that.
What was I thinking?
Yeah, it's like, what was I getting out of that again? Because when you first do it, you get that little instant gratification, that instant little high or whatever it
Right.
was. And then after 10 years of smoking, I used to be a smoker, so I can talk about this. You realize that really I'm just smoking to smoke, right? I wasn't really getting anything out of it. I would say, oh, well, it helps relieve stress or this or that. Or those were all right here. They were me tricking myself into why I needed another one. Why I needed another one, right? And by the end, I realized like I wasn't even smoking that much
Right.
anymore, and it was like,
Right.
why am I even doing it? It was not even enjoyable anymore. I just did it, right? So a lot of things in your life right now, you just do. You don't even realize it, but they're not enjoyable anymore. You're just doing them to do them.
Right.
Whether no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be tobacco or alcohol or anything like that. Just start evaluating things in your life and say, am I just doing this to do it? Because there's probably some things that you are. So just take a look and see. Sometimes we have to evaluate ourselves. Oftentimes we do. Because if we don't, we'll just keep being complacent.
Right.
And I think, that's some wisdom from Solomon right there. I think that's what he's trying to help us with. And don't worry, we got a lot more to go. We got all the way to 31s. We're just 1 week in now, day 7, and he's already thrown some punches. I know. If you've been listening, you've been reading, and you've been watching, he's thrown some punches at you. I know he has, and you've been reflecting. We got a lot more reflecting to do, but it's all going to be good. It's all going to be good because it's going to help us grow, and that's going to help the kingdom grow. Right?
Right.
Well, that's all I got for tonight. You got anything?
I don't have anything to add. I added most of mine at the beginning.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're glad to have you join us. If you have prayer requests, we're always open to them. The ones that we have received, even here recently, even today, we're lifting those up. I promise you, we're lifting those up. We're being prayer warriors with you, for you. And if you ever just need to reach out to us and say, hey, look, I need a prayer right now, we'll do it. I promise you, there's always time for prayer. There is. Paul talks about he prayed without ceasing. Right? Now, that's awesome. That is just awesome. I often wonder, like, wow, how did he do that? But he said he did it. I believe it. But there's always time for prayer. Sometimes, I also want to remind you this before we go. There's nothing wrong with asking people to pray for you. That's always a good thing. There's power in prayer, and we love praying for you. Sometimes you need to pray for yourself. That's very important. Love yourself enough to pray for yourself and trust God.
Well, now that we got on the prayer, now it's something else that I want to add. Yeah, when you pray for it, you might not get the answer you expected, but when you get the answer, you have to accept it, whether it be no, whether it be hard, whatever. If it's no, accept that it's no and you got to live with it. But if it's something hard, do it. I promise you, after the hard gets out of the way, you'll be happier than you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And because prayers get answered in different ways. Because this, I mean, I've used the example of the companion a few times with my dog. I prayed for a companion. I got a dog. I was actually seeking a fleshly companion, and I ended up with a dog. But the Lord knew that I would backtrack had I got
Mm-hmm.
a flesh companion. And say, I'm gonna send you a dog. That's somebody that could be your friend, and you know, just be that you could talk to them. They'll talk back to you. At least you can pretend they talk back to you.
Right.
But there's some things I pray for that I've seen the answer and it's hard. And I'm like, oh, dog, I got to, because why did I pray for it if I'm not going to do it when I'm given the answer?
Absolutely, and that also goes back to the story of Naaman that we've talked about before, when they told him to go dip in the Jordan River, right? And he was like, "What? You could at least tell me to go dip in one of my rivers, or tell me to do something else." And then his wise counsel that was around him, right? This is why we surround ourselves with wise counsel. Said, if it was something difficult, you would have done it, right?
Right.
So why don't you want to do it if it's something easy? Because sometimes it's also an easy thing. You just think it's too easy and you don't want to do it. Sometimes the answer might be stop,
Yeah.
right?
Or slow down.
hmm Just think, if you say, "Lord, look, I need help with my finances," right? That's a prayer that a lot of people will pray, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people, especially with inflation and things like that.
Right.
Finances are getting tight for a lot of people.
Right.
And then sometimes he'll say, click unsubscribe.
Right.
Right?
Oh,
Do you need Max and Netflix and Hulu and YouTube and
or do you need that McDonald's cheeseburger today, or whatever? Just so many
sometimes
things.
sometimes it's just stop, right? Sometimes God says you know the answer. You're just not doing it. You want me to give you a different one. Those are the hard ones,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Those are the hard ones. When you say, all right, God, I know what I got to do. Is there another way? Right? Yeah, that happens. We talked about Jesus, right? When he was in the garden of Gethsemane, and he said, Father, if there's any other way. And then he came back and he said, you know what? Never mind. Father, I'm going to do your will. But that first prayer,
hmm
well, if there's any other way, he already knew the answer.
Right.
There's not another way. I love Jesus. I'm not saying anything about it. He had came to the world in a fleshly body. That flesh will tell us to look for another way sometimes, right? Because we don't like the way that we need to do it. Well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to call to God and say, hey, look, reroute me. And he's going to go, nope, that's the path right there. Take it. Sometimes you already know the answer. Quit asking for a different way. Do what you've been called to do. Trust me, I'm guilty of it. I
So,
am guilty of it plenty.
so
I
am
have
I.
called and said, God, come on. You know, is there a bypass?
Can this be multiple choice,
Yeah,
please?
like,
I've been there.
and he's like, no, I gave you the way. Take it. Well, that wasn't the way I wanted. That's the way I gave you. Take it. You will find great wisdom in those paths. You will. I guarantee if he's put that path in front of you, there's a lesson to be learned from it. And it's one that's going to help you grow. That's the power of prayer. Sometimes you just need to pray for yourself and quit praying for a different way if he's already given you the way. Just say, okay, if you need to get a little more strength to go the way that he gave you, pray for that, but don't pray that he changes the way. Pray that he helps you get through it. Because sometimes it's just that simple. If he's already told you, you just got to do. And like I said, don't think that I'm out here saying that never happens to me, because it does. And it happens to people
Amen.
that you see that you think nothing bad ever happens to that person in their life ever. Trust me, it does.
They might even be praying to themselves silently right then for a different way.
You're exactly right. The preacher, the pastor that's giving you a message, you think nothing ever comes against them in their life. I promise you it does. The people that you look at and you say they have the perfect, peaceful life, they may be at peace, but their life may have a lot of hectic in it too. You just don't know. So don't think that just because somebody's giving you the message that they're immune from Satan's attacks and the things that he tries to do to take you away, because they're not. They're not. And if anybody's telling you they're perfect, they're lying. The only perfect one to walk this earth was Jesus, and that's it. And he hadn't come back yet, because when he comes back, we all go. So it ain't him. And with that, I am good.
I am good.
Well, everyone, we appreciate you joining. We like that you tuned in with us. We really just love being here and spreading the word of God. And we'll see you next time. God bless.